This week, disastrous Rowhammer bitflips. All right, I mean, it's not really that disastrous, but we'll talk about it. Malicious developer steals Bitcoin with a Node.js module. Germany is proposing router security guidelines. Uber is fined $148 million for a data breach cover-up. Microsoft yanks 2 buggy Office packages, and a Malvertising campaign impacts millions of iOS users. Jason Wood from Paladin Security joins us for expert commentary on how the FBI created a fake FedEx website to unmask a cyber criminal. All that and more on this episode of Hack Naked News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night.
Welcome, everyone, to Hack Naked News, episode 198 for November 27th, 2018. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Just a quick reminder, join us for our webcast with Chronicle titled Intelligence-Powered Malware Hunting. This webcast will be held on December 5th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you go to securityweekly.com/Chronicle and register today. And now, the security news for this week. A potentially disastrous Rowhammer bitflip can bypass ECC protections. Dubbed the ECC exploit, the new Rowhammer attack bypasses ECC protections built into several widely used modules of DDR3 memory chips. The exploit is the product of more than a year of painstaking research that used a syringe needles to inject faults into chips and supercooled chips to observe how they respond when their bits are flipped. The resulting insights, along with a whole lot of advanced math, allowed researchers from Vrije University, Amsterdam's VUSec group, to demonstrate that one of the key defenses against Rowhammer isn't sufficient. However, I like Ken's analysis. Ken White is an independent security researcher who specializes in cloud security, even, not crowd security. That's a different Ken. He told Ars Technica, and I quote, "I don't want to come across as a grumpy guy in the balcony because this is grueling work that took hundreds of hours to pull off. But unless you can demonstrate a real exploit, it remains in the confines of endpoints and on-premise hardware." AKA, not a huge deal, but super cool research that you should go check out. Facebook is going to pay ethical hackers $40,000 now for reporting a single account takeover bug. Facebook is extending the olive branch to the ethical hacker community by increasing its bug bounty rewards while decreasing the technical overhead. White hats can now earn as much as $40,000 for a single account takeover bug. The announcement was made on the social network's bug bounty page, where Facebook encourages white hat hackers to poke at the platform in every way imaginable to find undiscovered flaws before bad actors do. Despite boasting a bug bounty program for over 7 years, Facebook, of course, has been plagued by leaks and attacks. In an effort to thwart these business-wrecking occurrences, the company is now planning to give ethical hackers more incentive to find holes in its platform. A worm used removable drives to distribute the BLADABINDI backdoor. Yep, that's right. I said BLADABINDI. Attackers are still using this attack method, as in mid-November of this year, researchers at Trend Micro first observed the worm, which security firms detect as worm.win32.bladabindi.aa. They're still investigating the threat's exact method for infecting a system, but after analyzing its propaganda routine, the researchers determined that the worm likely propagates and enters a system through removable drives. Specifically, they spotted the worm installing a hidden copy of itself on any removable drive connected to the infected system. BLADABINDI, A malicious developer distributed a tainted version of event stream NodeJS module and used it to steal Bitcoins. This is an example of the dangers of open source software as it relates to security. The event stream library is a very popular Node.js module used to allow developers the management of data streams. It has nearly 2 million downloads per week. It has been estimated that the tainted version of the library was downloaded by nearly 8 million developers. The library was created by Dominic Tarr, who maintained it for a long time, but when he left the project, allowed an unknown programmer called Write9 Controller, it's abbreviated, to continue its work. Hence some of my fears and speculation about when an open source developer decides to move on, who exactly is taking it over? Well, in this case, don't let Write9 CTRL take over your project, because they'll just backdoor it and use it to mine Bitcoin, apparently, or cryptocurrency in general. Germany proposes router security guidelines. I don't believe this is going to work. However, it's a noble effort. The article states that the German government published at the start of this month an initial draft for rules on securing small office and home office, or SOHO routers, published by the German Federal Office for Information Security. The rules have been put together with input from router vendors, German telecoms, and the German hardware community. Once approved, router manufacturers don't have to abide by these requirements, but if they do, they can get a special sticker on their products to show their compliance. Isn't that cute? It's a sticker. Anyway. I don't think it's going to drive consumer purchasing options or make people look for this sticker when they're purchasing a router. It could, maybe in the future, but however, I think it's kind of not a good effort that will have a huge impact on small office and home office router security. Uber is fined $148 million for a data breach cover-up. Uber is paying that fine and will improve its data security as part of a legal statement for attempting to cover up a data breach in 2016, which only came to light in 2017, when it emerged that 600,000 U.S. drivers and 57 million user accounts have been affected, including an estimated 2.4 million in the UK. Covering up a breach, in fact, does not pay. In fact, companies are forced to pay as a result of covering up a breach, a la Yahoo, paid in different ways. In any case, Microsoft yanks 2 buggy Office patches, but keeps pushing one that crashes stuff. 2 related Office 2010 non-security patches were issued on November 6th. They were pulled on November 17th. That's KB 4461522 and KB 2863821 are both related to changes coming in the Japanese calendar next month, attributed to the abdication of Emperor Akihito. This event has been compared, of course, to the Y2K problem in the West. Also in the article, security patch KB 4461529er is still being distributed in spite of acknowledged crashes, and the alternatives may not work. I don't envy you if you're a Microsoft administrator trying to install patches this week. Cisco releases a second patch for Webex meetings vulnerability. Cisco has released a new round of patches for a potentially serious vulnerability in Webex, first addressed 1 month ago. The security hole, discovered by my good friends Ron Bowes and Jeff McJunkin over at CounterHack, is caused by insufficient validation of user-supplied parameters, allowing local and authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary system commands. However, Cisco warns that remote exploitation may be possible in Active Directory deployments. A malvertising campaign impacts millions of iOS users. According to researchers, those behind the malvertising campaigns typically inject malicious code into malicious online ads and web pages, which has been going on for some time. So when victims click on those pages, they are forcefully redirected to malicious pages. In this case, the ad will forcefully redirect mobile users to adult content and gift card scams. In the specific case, when users visited a web page, the malicious ad would execute embedded obfuscated JavaScript. Victims were then redirected to an array of malicious landing pages, including happy.hipsterclub.com or happy.luckstarclub.com. These landing pages typically impersonated Google Play apps, making them appear more legitimate. With that, we'll take a short break, come back with expert commentary from none other than Jason Wood. Stay tuned.
Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/HNN. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter.
Make sure you go to go.stealthbits.com/2019 trends and register for the StealthBits webcast titled Emerging and Continuing Trends in 2019 Privacy Regulations, Active Directory Security, and Machine Learning for an in-depth discussion from myself and representatives from StealthBits. Make sure you go to stealthbits.com/assessment and register today. Now we welcome none other than the illustrious Jason Wood from Paladin Security. Jason, welcome.
Hey, Paul. Good to be back with you again this week.
Yes, we're talking about setting up a fake FedEx website.
Yeah, pretty much. This story had me laughing a little bit in spite of the headline provided by Motherboard here. But this came from a story written by Motherboard that had what struck me as a little bit funny reversal of roles. Normally, when we think of spear phishing attacks, we're thinking of the bad guy going after somebody. But in this case, the FBI actually received a warrant authorizing them to take this and use this technique against the attacker. So it was kind of an interesting read on what went on here. The way things basically got rolling is a company, which was a crane operator, actually received a spear phishing attack that impersonated their CEO. They came up with a long email address that looked like it came from the company and the CEO of the company to the accounts payable department, saying basically we need to set up a new vendor and get a check out to them. The finance department sent out a request for a W-9 basically, and when they received that for a fake company, they went ahead and mailed out a check for $82,000. Now, this got picked up a little bit later in a bit of an audit, and they realized that they had made a mistake in issuing this check. So they reported this to the FBI. The attacker decided they had a good thing going here with somebody who was willing to pay out money. So they came back to make another attempt from a slightly different email address, but similar enough. And at this point, though, the FBI was there hoping and ready for the attacker to come back with another request. In this case, the attacker came back and the FBI responded that to send out the money needed to get some more information. Apparently, I guess they prompted them to go to what appeared to be a FedEx website, but was actually a domain registered by the FBI special agent on the investigation. And its goal was to try and basically get back to the attacker's source IP address. Now, they did make a number of attempts on their webpage to prevent the use of proxies and things like that to try and see if they could get back to the source IP. Unfortunately for the FBI, this didn't work. The attacker was a bit wary of this and checked it out from apparently 6 different IP addresses to see if the site was legitimate and decided to take a pass on responding to it from the way the FBI was hoping. There was a little bit more back and forth, so the FBI got a little bit more aggressive, and this is where we were able to actually see things in the warrant that was filed and has since been released publicly, which you can check out in the Motherboard article. But essentially, at this point, they sent out a Word document that apparently was supposed to contain a screenshot showing that the funds had been sent. In this case, the screenshot, though, was an image embedded. The link to the image was inside of the Word document. So when they the attacker opened up the Word document, the document would fetch the image from a server hosted by the FBI automatically. And then that would hopefully get them the information they wanted, which was primarily the source IP address. Now, I wasn't able to find any information as to whether or not this was successful with what's been publicly released. Their additional documents are still sealed under court orders, apparently. So we don't know if this worked or not. But I thought it was kind of an interesting play to watch the back and forth here and see the FBI essentially use the techniques that we associate with bad guys, trying to get information out of the attackers.
Yeah, I've actually done this kind of thing before in the past, and I think one observation is that when law enforcement is conducting this type of investigation to try and basically trick an attacker into giving up information about their IP address or any digital information, well, a couple things. One, you got to be conscious of warrants, right? And I believe the courts, and I'm not a lawyer, but the courts have ruled that obtaining an IP address in stories that we covered have proven that they don't need a warrant to essentially trick an attacker into giving up their IP address, right? If you go further, like I want to execute a command on their system and download all their files, that requires a warrant. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't take that for 100% truth, but the way I understand it and have interacted with these investigations, that's what I understand. I think the second thing is the FBI has to either have on staff or work with someone that has knowledge of social engineering and these types of attacks so that they are successful 100% of the time, or as close to 100% as you can get. When I've seen these go wrong, it's when the investigators kind of take it upon themselves to construct the ruse, and they're not skilled at social engineering or technology, and it goes wrong, and they're typically doing something against the advice of a technical expert. I hope that's gotten better, since I was doing this type of stuff. But it's interesting because I've done similar investigations or aided in similar investigations.
Yeah. So in this case, it looks like they, in spite of the fact that they were just trying to get an IP address, you can find like I said, the link to the warrant in the motherboard article just posted in the show notes. But maybe I'll add the link to the warrant to the show notes directly. But they did obtain a warrant for it, and I did notice as I was reading through the warrant a little bit, the FBI agent is actually fairly new agent. They talks about their background a bit, the training that they've received around this type of work. They apparently started in 2017, so it was a fairly new special agent that had crafted this attack. So hopefully they're a little bit more savvy maybe than what you had run into in the past. Yeah, in this case, like I said, the first attempts didn't work. The second attempt, we don't have any information on, because really the warrant was to get authorization to send the Word document that was attempting to do this. The motherboard article did go on to cite another example of this technique being used by the FBI. One of the things I thought was interesting was they noted a rule change created by the Justice Department around obtaining warrants to get this type of information. In the past, U.S. judges could only obtain warrants for computers that were within their district. Now, in the case of this type of investigation, we don't necessarily know where the attacker is. And so how could the judge, where do you know to get the warrant in this case? So they've adjusted the rules to basically allow a judge to sign a warrant for a computer system that may end up being outside of their district. Seems like kind of an obvious necessary change to take place. I mean, sure, if you're going in to raid somebody's office building, you know where it is, but in this case, you don't. One of the things that, there's been a lot of discussion over the years in the security community about hacking back type of activities. And for companies, of course, this remains illegal at this point. Law enforcement obviously has greater authority in its activities, especially if they're underneath a court order or they've received a warrant and authorizing them for it. One of the things I thought was interesting reading through the warrant is that the activity was focused on some very narrow parameters, at least in this instance, where they were strictly going for information gathering. It is possible, of course, at FedEx or any company that's being using their brand, having their branding used to create the phishing site might fuss about this a little bit. But in this case, you're looking at something that is pretty limited, should be pretty limited. The attacker should be the only one seeing this. Maybe some bots will bump into the site. It's up for a little while and then it gets taken down. One of my thoughts was this is definitely a technique, obviously, that penetration testers, red teamers use on a fairly regular basis. And I doubt FedEx is going to fuss terrible much about this particular instance and how it was applied. Anyhow, I thought it was interesting to read through, see the techniques that were being used here. It was fairly straightforward. The justification behind this, the explanation of what happened in this particular investigation is all contained in the warrant. A little bit of a dry read because it is a legal document, but still you can get the information directly from the source at this case, what was applied with, applied to the courts to authorize. And so it's worth taking a look if you find this sort of thing interesting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And with that, that'll conclude this episode of Hack Naked News. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.